usual gamma ray burst that even today is still surprising the scientists with all of the new data that's been collected in the last few months. That's because it was only detected in October of 2022, and it's actually apparently still visible even today. With the actual explosion and the emission produced by this gamma ray burst being so powerful that not only was it detected by every sensor we have on the planet, but it also oversaturated certain satellites, almost making them shut down because of the amount of radiation that was detected. With at least one facility detecting what seems to be the most powerful photon or the most powerful gamma ray that we've ever seen. Or I guess a little bit more worrisome, is that this explosion even affected the atmosphere of our planet. It dramatically changed the ionosphere for several minutes, which then made the atmosphere of the planet expand for at least a few hours. And that's after an explosion that happened approximately 2.4 billion light years away from us. But we've actually discussed all of this in the video in the description when the scientists originally discovered this particular explosion and its effects on the atmosphere. But it's now been several months, and very recently the scientists have released several major papers discovering even more about this unusual explosion and analyzing even more features, including the radio afterglow, but more importantly, the complete lack of what the scientists expected to find. The actual glow from the supernova, hypernova, or kilonova that might have happened here, since this is how we believe gamma ray bursts form. Detected so far have not been nearly as powerful as the one that we're talking about today. And normally following this event, as the jets propagate away from the center, they start to encounter various layers of material around the star, most likely ejected thousands or possibly even millions of years before the star goes supernova, forming a kind of a layered shell around the star system itself. And as these jets collide with all of this material, they start to produce various types of emissions in other frequencies. First gamma rays, then X-rays, eventually visible light that you can actually even see with an amateur telescope, but later on microwaves and radio light. Here's an example of one of these afterglows. This is in X-rays. But in this case, this is actually one of the reasons why this particular explosion seems to be kind of weird. The evolution of the afterglow here does not fit with any standard theories. For example, as you see in this simulation created by NASA, the actual collision of neutron stars and the gamma ray burst is followed by an explosion that generally produces its own emissions as well and sort of resembles a typical supernova, although it's a little bit weaker and so it's actually known as the kilonova. But the recent observations using various telescopes determined no such explosion ever happened. As a matter of fact, they've discovered something really strange. It looks like pretty much all of the energy emitted by whatever happened here actually turned into the jet itself and was not emitted in pretty much any other way. Or essentially, all of the energy is the jet. And not just any jet, it seems to be an extremely straight jet. Scientifically, this is known as collimated jet, and it's essentially as if something caused it to be extremely parallel, going into one single direction. Now that something could be obviously some kind of a powerful magnetic field, or some kind of a process during the explosion itself, but at the moment it's extremely unclear exactly what did that. And because here we're talking about an explosion releasing more energy than our sun is going to release throughout its whole lifetime, and all of this in just like 1 second, and then all of this energy is concentrated in these jets alone, by itself this presents us with an extremely unusual case of gamma ray bursts, or actually any explosions. This is literally the most powerful explosion the scientists have ever seen. And that's exactly what one of the papers discovered here. It seems to be so energetic that it's expected to occur maybe once per 1,000 years, implying that we're not going to be seeing these for many years to come, making this the only opportunity for scientists to study such an unusually powerful event. Out of thousands and thousands of simulations where the scientists tried to create something similar, they discovered that it seems to only happen once.
This image you will see here outlines the basic concept of how the multiverse that collapses at the end of each universe and repeats the Big Bang event. Except what actually occurs is that everything that exists is drawn into a finite single particle as it is merged into the one single atom. Then, when that last fusion takes place, the force that binds them all together shuts off because it has no fuel left to sustain itself, for that is what gives gravity its power. The very presence of a single particle that is not the exact duplicate of itself causes the opposing cycle of kinetic friction to begin. The discharge of these opposing particles' motion that is set by the indifference between them uses the energy of the friction to generate more particles like itself, and its reaction causes the particle to generate slowly building momentum due to the resistance to the particle's indifference, duplicating the energy generated proportionate to the frequency of the energy's discharge. Thus this is the source of gravity, the force that binds all things together. So when that energy no longer has anything left to resist, then it no longer can sustain itself, and when that occurs, the energy that packed everything into that finite point is gone, thus causes the expansion of the new universe's Big Bang. How many times this has happened from where we are in this cycle of eternity?
The construction of hypercubes can be imagined the following way. One-dimensional, 2 points can be connected to become a line. Two-dimensional, 2 parallel line segments separated by a distance and can be connected to become a square. Three-dimensional, 2 parallel squares and can be connected to become a cube. Four-dimensional, 2 parallel cubes. In the scientific method of deduction and the religious evidence available, this is what we can construct as a working model of the universe's beginning. that the time before the physical universe was the primordial void, made possible by particles that already were within existence but had fallen into black holes that ejected them at such high speeds that they exceeded the speed of light and went flying past the barrier of their physical universe and into the spaceless void. We call them fast radio-microwave bursts. Because of this process, the particles are stripped of every bonding charge and left formless. The buildup of these nonlinear particles eventually became paralleled by hydrogen and helium. The indifference between them caused the first inertia of kinetic friction that generated the first photon emission that began the fusing of particles. This was the first dimension, governed by kinetic energy. The result of this fusing of particles created the formation of particle mass that began as gravity. That was the force that fused the particles of hydrogen into helium, and the reaction of that was the ohm, or the sudden expansion of something, called the Higgs boson photon field. Because this was the creation of space itself, so thus there was nowhere for this event to even make an echo of sound until that point. The sudden expansion of space as a superheated universe of, well, the first star basically before it pooled together into a solid form, would be described as a muffled explosion or ohm. This sound wave resonance of this event can still be heard echoing through space within the photon field. In fact, that sound was how they discovered their heat signature of the photon field in the first place.
that house will rock. Blind boys don't lie. Immortal fear, that voice so clear through broken walls. That scream I hear. Cry, little sister. Come to your brother. Chinese sister. Love is with your brother. Blue masquerade, strangers look on. When will they learn this loneliness? Temptation heat beats like a drum deep in your veins. I'll live nine lives, little sister. Come to
Well, the design needs some calibrations made to it that can only be calculated to the precision necessary by a supercomputer that just has the latest and most accurate stellar data uploaded. The calculations must be set to exact precision. Plus, I still need to run tests to make sure no anomalous side effects such as instantaneous development of a micro black hole will form as a result. But their basic design would look something like these images here. Along the outer edges I would have aligned a metal alloy that has the conductive composition of monatomic gold. It is actually quite necessary for this specific alloy because it has a quality that allows a total of 0.00% electromagnetic conductive transfer where currents are run through it. It is necessary because any interruption to the flow of energy through these coils will cause a complete portal collapse and atomize anyone traveling through and probably destroy whatever planet it's on. Probably with most of the surrounding star systems. The entire system runs on theories that have not yet been finished, including an as yet to be discovered particle field of the universe that actually stretches through each phase of the universe's expansion and multiple Big Bang events that occur at the beginning of each new particle field's development. We know of the four basic fields to the fabrics of reality, being photon, neutron, electron and proton fields. Then there is the fifth developing field recently discovered, which is the ether field or luminescence field, which actually is the field of particle decay they call dark matter, but they will figure that out eventually. This unknown field is a sixth-dimensional field of space, the temporal radiance spectrum, and is the field that encompasses the very fabric of time itself. This particle field consists of oscillating spectrums of light moving so fast that it can only be detected through the spectrum of light waves that appear as another universe that exists right next to us, when in fact it is there, for lack of better terms, a shimmer of our own reflection within the waves of light itself. Now when those particle waves of light slow down to the point where it no longer can maintain its position within the fast-moving spectrum of light, they'll enter into the physical universe through the photon field of various frequencies, in which it then breaks down into what we call fast radio microwave bursts, or the static on the TV. That fuzz comes from the vacuum tube's ability to process these bursts and displays it as the fuzz on the screen. My device will chart out the exact photon entry frequencies and use the principle of the Stargate to lock onto those specific field spectrums, then use a synthetic electromagnetic atmosphere generator by using the calculated pyramid design to unlock the exact positions needed for the sound wave resonance emitter to be placed in to create a miniature synthesized atmospheric shield. Then I'll use an autonomous probe equipped with an emitter that, after tuning into the exact frequency of the time period I want to travel to, since within the spectrum of the field of time, time is not fluid but static frequencies, governed by radio waves, AMD light spectrums. Once locked onto the frequency, the probe will send out the impulse signal that I can lock onto for the final Stargate destination symbol, and then stabilize this wormhole portal with the synthetic atmosphere emitter, allowing travel from one point in time to